Please welcome IBM Worldwide CTO Technical Sales Data and AI, Deepak Rangaro.
What we have with SingleStore and IBM is this one family of very synergistic capabilities. Okay, I'm going to be talking about two IBM capabilities. So the structure of it is I'm going to spend the first 30 seconds telling you what you already know, and then I'll get into the IBM capabilities itself. First would be StreamSets, and then watsonx. And then we'll finish off with how does SingleStore and IBM work together? Where do they all fit in? Okay? There's a lot of content. We've got 15 minutes. I'm hanging around after the event as well, so please do feel free to ping me anytime. Okay? So here's the part that you already know. There is a lot of data. There's a lot of places that data is residing in. There's challenges because there's redundancies and multiple copies of data being made, which means that there's a potential for loss of quality. Okay, so we're trying to do the best AI, and the challenge with anytime you want to get the best AI outcome, you're depending on good quality data. Okay, so here's the obvious part which you already know, what we're going to see over the next few minutes is what are the capabilities that could address some of these challenges. Okay, I'll start with StreamSets. StreamSets is a recent acquisition by IBM. We've already got a fairly strong portfolio in terms of data integration. But what StreamSets brings to us is this near real-time aspect of it. Okay, pipelines, data integration from a near real-time perspective. So three things. So one is ingesting at scale. So there is a lot of data coming in. Obviously, you need to be able to handle it, and you need to be able to scale it, not just vertically, but horizontally as well. Okay. The second aspect of it is data drift. So everyone talks about AI. Obviously, if you think about it, right, the reason we want to leverage AI is we want to serve our customers better. Okay. So what does that really mean? All the applications that are customer facing, we want to make them better all the time. And what does that translate to? If the applications are constantly evolving, the data is changing all the time. The schema of the data is changing all the time. So if you have pipelines that are dealing with data, with schemas that are changing all the time, and then you have a scenario for data drift. Okay? So in a traditional setup, when you have data drift, the challenge is that the pipelines have to change. So it's not, my application's changed and everything else works. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. So what StreamSets is really good at is handling this data drift without having to go and change the pipelines. The pipelines already recognize the drift in data, and it already adapts itself. Okay, so that's the key value proposition here. The third aspect of it is there's data coming from all kinds of sources, okay, in real time. So we have support for streaming data from a variety of data sources. Okay. So now to the how do we use it and what are the salient features? So of course, pipelines. So you want something that is intuitive. It's got a drag drop interface. It's fairly intuitive. You can put things together. Okay, and I can tell you that I was, started using StreamSets relatively recently, and it was a fairly smooth transition. I could get it very easily. The second aspect of it is once you've created the pipeline, the management and the operationalization of the pipelines is also very important. So every organization's got different kind of scheduling tools, and they want the flexibility to go and manage these pipelines and monitor the pipelines using SDK, so full-fledged SDK. The third and the most important aspect of it is, depending on who the customer is and what geography they belong to, there are different regulations. There are constraints over, where can you move the data as you're doing the transformations? Where can you keep the data? Okay, you want to make sure that you're able to not just scale to the high volumes of data, but you're able to do your transformations and you're able to run your pipelines closer to where the data is. Or better said is you're able to run the pipelines where you're allowed to run the pipelines. Okay, so what StreamSets brings is this control plane and data plane concept where your data plane can run anywhere. Okay, and we'll get into that a little more very soon. Again, I'm rushing a little bit just because of the time, but I'm going to be there after. Okay. All right. So now to watsonx. Okay. Again, there's a lot to digest, so just bear with me. Okay. So watsonx is the brand. There are three pillars of capabilities. So we've got the AI pillar, then we've got data and governance. Okay. I'll start with the AI pillar and then go to the other ones. With watsonx AI, what we have is, so Gen AI is new, so we've seen a lot about RAG and all the good things we can do with it. But obviously, we also have, the two things to consider is there is the traditional machine learning and AI also to think about, in addition to the Gen AI capabilities. But we also have this aspect of being able to make the models smarter. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Being able to go and fine-tune the model and bring your institutional knowledge to the model itself. Okay, so it can answer questions better in your context. And the other aspect of it is, I'm sure you've heard a lot about the context window constraints that you have. So with the watsonx AI, one of the other things is we, in addition to fine-tuning models, we also have the ability to do prompt tuning. Okay, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, so watsonx AI is the AI pillar. So the next one down there is the data pillar. Okay, of course, all AI that you do depends on the data that you have. Okay, and you have to be able to manage data, and you have to be able to do something intelligent with data. Okay, we have a two-way relationship between data and AI. So one is data is coming in a hurry. There's a lot of data coming in. Some of this might not have meaningful names. So what we want to do is we want to leverage AI to bring meaning to the data that we already have. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. Okay, the second aspect of it is for us to build our AI models, we need the data. Okay, so we have the data management to build or train the models. So that's the other aspect of data. Okay, the third pillar is the governance pillar. Okay, it's great to talk about AI, and AI is fantastic. But of course, if you don't bring responsibility to the AI, then there could be consequences. Okay, so what the governance pillar brings is this responsibility to AI, being able to track everything you're doing around AI so that you're answerable. Okay, being able to bring stewardship to the notion of AI, so that if there is something that if a question gets asked, you know who to ask the question to, and the person's able to answer the question with metrics that are meaningful. Okay, so again, there's a lot of content, so just bear with me. I will get to the substance of the details a little more as well. Okay. So I'm going to start with a little more in-depth of the data pillar. Okay. So what we're trying to do is, if you think about it, traditionally with data management, of course, we know data management, right? We came up with databases. So, but with traditional data management, the idea was that the constraint was that it was held in proprietary formats, and then customers were tied to a particular vendor. So one of the things we're trying to do now is to move towards a more scalable, open architecture where the data is held in an open format. So if you see here, highly scalable object stores, so that part is great. I've got one example of an open table format here, which is Iceberg. We support other formats as well. And then we've got a shared metadata layer, because the point of that is we understand that there are different personas that go and consume the data and do different things with it, okay? Which means that they have different choices of what tools they want to use, okay? If you're a data engineer, perhaps Spark is the most appropriate mechanism for you to interact with the data. If you're an analyst, maybe you want some ad hoc analysis tool or ad hoc querying tool, okay? So the idea here is that we've got open data in an open format with shared metadata that different engines, both IBM and non-IBM engines, can benefit from. SingleStore being one of them. Okay, so we've got IBM engines, we've got also SingleStore that gives you the flexibility to use the same data using different engines. Okay, the second aspect of it is a hybrid. Okay, one of the things to understand is there is data in different places, You can't pick and choose where you want to run your workload. You have to have the flexibility to say, I can go and read data from different places. So watsonx Data introduces this notion of hybrid for you. Okay. The third aspect of it is, if you really think about it, when people talk about IBM mainframes or System Z, they think, oh, it's archaic. Maybe no one's using it, or maybe it's dead. That's not the fact. The reality is that most of the things that matter, if you've traveled here, if you've swiped your credit card, then there's a very high chance that you've touched a mainframe. Okay, so one of the things to understand is that we want we want to make all of this great data available for other work that you're doing. So watsonx Data has this data gate. Think of it as a feature that allows you to seamlessly replicate data from the mainframe onto the distributed system, so that you can combine it and use it, in different contexts. Okay. Kind of, I don't know if it's as fuzzy for you as it is for me, but if you look at the different pieces, just reiterating what I said earlier, from a watsonx Data perspective, what we're doing is we're using Gen AI to better understand our data. Okay, that's the one aspect of it. Then the second aspect of it is the query engines. I told you about the different options that you have, both IBM and non-IBM query engines that operate on the same data, which means that you're not creating copies, lesser challenges with quality. Okay, the key feature is the open format, both open table formats as well as open file formats. So there is no vendor lock-in. You have the flexibility to say, I can use any engine I want, and I can keep moving without having to worry about it. The watsonx AI pillar. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of what we call a prompt lab. Okay. So with the watsonx AI pillar, what we provide is multiple things. One is we make available both IBM language models as well as non-IBM language models, open language models, or from other providers. Okay. What the prompt lab allows you to do is exactly as the name suggests. It allows you to do your prompts, make sure that your models are able to respond to what you're trying to get to. Some of the other capabilities around watsonx AI is, so there is the one side of it is the training of the model and tuning of the model with your context. The other aspect of it is the operationalization and the inferencing side of it. Okay, so both for Gen AI as well as traditional machine learning and AI models. Okay, we've introduced recently something called Instruct Lab. So what that is the idea is that in the open source world, how you have different developers contribute to code, we're bringing that concept to models itself, to Gen AI models. So the idea is that each one of us has a focus on a different space, and the idea is we should all be able to collaborate and then bring our intelligence together and make the model smarter. Okay? Not only is everyone else benefiting from this, we also get to benefit from everyone else's knowledge. Okay? So that's what Instruct Lab is. Again, I'm oversimplifying it just in the amount of time we have. I mentioned operationalization. So MLOps, again, both for traditional machine learning and AI, as well as Gen AI, we've got highly scalable mechanisms around MLOps, being able to operationalize it and make it available to the applications that will benefit from it. Okay, so governance is a very loosely used term. A lot of people confuse it perhaps sometimes to security. So what we mean by governance is acting responsibly, keeping track of what you're doing, and making sure there is a sense of stewardship so that there is somebody responsible and answerable for everything that you're doing. So here, if you look at this really complicated picture, not really. You start always with the build side of it. Okay, so whatever your model is, you're building a model, and then you go through an iterative process. You say, okay, I build my model based on whatever my metrics are. I evaluate it. I determine if it's good enough for me as at that point in time. So I'm capturing some metrics. So the idea is that I want to, as I capture the metrics, I want to have an inventory of the model, and I want to capture all the metrics around that inventory of the model itself. Okay? Then once you have a model that's half good, you deploy it. Okay? Um, in the deployment phase, again, the cycle doesn't stop. You're still constantly monitoring, evaluating the model, and you're collecting metrics. Okay? So the idea is that as you're doing that, you want to capture that as a part of your model inventory. Okay? So if you think about it, what you're really trying to achieve here is at any point in time, if your end user is using a chat bot or whatever it is that benefits from AI, if it is giving you either an inappropriate answer or a not good enough answer, and somebody says, why are you responding in this particular way? You should be able to go back and figure out what the problem was. Okay, perhaps you have to fine tune your parameters or change something, the way you're doing something. That's what we cater for. Okay, so now how does all this fit together? Okay, so we've got SingleStore. I mentioned there's a lot of data coming in, and there's a lot of data in real time coming in. So very important. So how does all of this fit in? So from a data integration perspective, from a real-time streaming pipeline perspective, we've got StreamSets, which has the control plane and data plane separation. So being able to scale your data plane, run it anywhere closer to the data, and then you've got the control plane for the design aspect of it and the orchestration aspect of it. The pipelines are then able to do two things. One is they're able to go and write to data in an open format. I used Iceberg earlier as an example, so it doesn't matter. It could be any open format. But also what they're able to do is write in real time or near real time to SingleStore. Okay, the picture doesn't illustrate this, but the pipeline is able to write both to the open format as well as to SingleStore. So now, what's the point of that? So you've got your end users or the beneficiaries, whether they're using a dashboard or whatever it is or an app, whatever it is they're doing. Now, what they have is a choice of one to use the engine of their choice, leverage the common data in an open format, um, benefit from the real-time aspect of SingleStore without making additional copies of data, okay? And even take it one step further. Perhaps there is some enrichment of data that you want to do as a part of your real-time activity. So SingleStore is now able to go and do that enrichment, and in the near future, able to feed back to the open table format the enriched data, so that from a data lake or a lakehouse perspective, you can look back at enriched data and benefit from it. Okay, so that's the point of that. A slightly bigger picture. So we've got our data management capabilities, both IBM and non-IBM capabilities. Okay, depending on what you're doing, you pick the right capability that you want to use. On the right-hand side, we've got our watsonx and the AI capabilities, both Gen AI as well as traditional. What is very important is the middle part of it. Okay, what is also very important is the middle part of it. It's one thing to be able to collect data and do some transformations, but the middle part of it is what brings the governance aspect to everything. Okay, so I've got high-level buckets in there, but if you really think about it, what we do is we go through a discovery process. We go and do profiling of data, we do classification of data, we do quality analysis, and then we're capturing all of this as a part of our catalog. So that way, not only are you having an answerable way and a governed kind of landscape, but you also have a centralized catalog that people can go and search and find assets from. Okay, so that's the point of that. So that's all I had. I know I was rushing. I'm not sure if I used more than 15 minutes or not, but that's all I had, and thank you for your time.